What do you get when you take the best games on the NES and smash the gameplay mechanics from them all together? Well, probably a jumbled mess if I did it, but in the hands of talented developers, you probably get something like this week's game, Fallen Leaf. It was released in July of 2024 by Delta Shore Games. I was just perusing the Steam store and saw some gorgeous pixel art screenshots, and I knew I wanted to get my grubby controller holding hands into it. That probably sounded disturbing. The game stars siblings Leaf and Petal, treasure hunters in a fantasy world. An evil being, Xanculos, has been unleashed in the world after Leaf opens up a golden chest in a cave guarded by a friendly bear. Not only Xanculos was locked up though, as an ancient wizard, Willow is also freed. Willow is a bit eccentric, but tells you that he was the one that originally defeated Xanculos and now needs a stone of power in order to place him back in the prison. In order to assist in your task, Willow gives the youngins a magic gauntlet that allows them to fire projectiles. It's a very entertaining start to the game, and you'll immediately see what kind of humor the game is going for. It does a great job at keeping a light mood, even though you did kind of possibly doom the entire world. After defeating the first stage boss, you'll choose the next stage on a massive world map filled with abundant color, reminiscent of games like Mario 3. You then aim to complete the entire game by opening every golden chest that's found at the end of the 80 plus stages. So let's talk about the gameplay. It can best be summed up by a bit of Mega Man, a bit of Castlevania, with maybe a sprinkling of Ninja Gaiden and Kirby added. Leaf can fire his projectiles in a manner not unlike the Blue Bomber. You'll encounter chests strewn throughout the levels, and opening them is very beneficial. You might find a large heart to fully replenish your life, you might find some jewels which function as your currency to buy things in town, or best of all, you might find an upgraded gauntlet. This power-up strengthens your shot, along with slightly increasing your range, allowing you to keep your distance a bit easier. If you can manage to hold on to the red gauntlet for long enough, you might be able to find a blue one, maxing out your power and distance. The catch to this is that once you are hit, you lose your powered up shots, so staying out of harm's way is something you should really try to do. In order to assist with your standard abilities, you will also find a variety of sub-weapons. These are used like the Castlevania games. You have a hammer that acts like an axe, a magical fishing tackle that is like a homing knife, a trident that strikes immediately in front of you and does massive damage to anything that got a bit too close for comfort, and about 9 other weapons. Many of these are found by completing optional subtasks in the various villages and encampments, such as escorting a farmer's cows to the grazing area, defeating any enemy that might stand in their way. What's nice? There was a recent update that lets you disable any attacks you don't use, making cycling through the ones you do prefer much easier. You do have a magic meter to govern these abilities' uses though, but unless you solely rely on these, you probably won't run low on magic too often. Shortly into the game, you get the option to swap your characters, as Petal joins the journey. She can jump a bit higher than Leaf and has a pet bee that seeks out any nearby threats and fires at them while you are shooting. The trade-off to this is that her range and power are noticeably less than Leaf's. But Petal isn't the only character you'll recruit. A repaired android that has rapid fire, a female that becomes a ninja when you give her a costume, a lobster that can latch onto and pull himself towards platforms. There's more than this, too, and according to some post-game content, I'm apparently missing at least 2 characters. Just like the sub-weapons, you can disable heroes you don't use in order to make swapping throughout levels easier. I will admit that a lot of the characters felt of limited use to me, especially when you unlock the double jump. Petal is great due to the homing shots, allowing her to take out the threats out of range without too much effort. But due to the weakness of her projectiles, she gets outperformed by Leaf when the double jump comes into play, due to her ability to jump higher being much less important than at the beginning of the game when you first get her. Thorn has a great melee slash and can wall jump, but many times I like the range of Leaf's shots. The Ninja Girl Umbra's technique to be able to double jump in any direction and cling to walls sounds awesome, but I've gotten myself into some tricky situations due to her attaching to walls that I didn't intend her to latch onto. Lubby the Lobster is useless unless I miss the jump and need a little push to get me back into range. The Fox Girl Paula moves quickly and can slash her claws rapidly, but the range is a huge con. It got to the point where I found myself just using Leaf for 95% of the game due to him being well-rounded. However, your playstyle might vary, and you might have no problems using these other characters. There is a great difficulty scale that you'll encounter in Fallen Leaf. The beginning of the game is kind of easy, but it does a fantastic job at introducing the gameplay mechanics and letting you get the feel of the primary characters. About halfway through the game, you'll notice that enemies are going to have trickier attacks that are harder to evade, and even deadlier, there are going to be more difficult platforming challenges that you'll be running into. Thankfully, there is minimal penalty upon death, in that you lose a few bonus jewels when clearing the stage, and you have to start at the beginning of the room you last entered. This really isn't terrible, although I wonder if maybe having a traditional life system might have worked in the game's favor. Like, I don't know. You have so many lives, and if you lose them all, you begin at the beginning of the world? Or something like that? Just a thought. The best part of Fallen Leaf is just exploring what the game has to offer around the next turn. There are plenty of pod people to find in each level. Well, one in each stage to be exact. These are used to bring back the Mother Stalk, which awards you when a specific amount of pod people are returned to her. Some of the abilities are passive, like not getting pushed back as much when taking damage. I will say that the reward for saving all of the pod people and defeating the boss that awaits you at the top is well worth it. Once you reach the end of the stage, Leaf will typically locate a golden chest and open it, revealing whatever was inside. Most of the time, it's some seemingly random item like a plastic coin, a torn trash bag, a bottle of water, and so on. When the game tells you what the item is, there's usually a somewhat comedic blurb that describes it, and a few of these did make me chuckle a little bit. But there is a reason behind all these trinkets that you can locate. Some villagers will give a hint about a problem that they have. And guess what? You might have the solution. For example, give the plastic coin to the guy at the wishing well, and he'll toss it in, making a wish. By fulfilling these optional subtasks, you'll be rewarded in one of several ways. Maybe you'll get a new character, or a new sub-weapon, but often you'll earn a fragment of a heart due to the happiness of the person manifesting itself. 3 heart fragments, and your maximum life increases. It doesn't hurt to backtrack and talk to everyone once again once you amass a sizable inventory of junk. I probably don't need to mention it, but I'm going to anyway. Fallen Leaf is gorgeous. There were a lot of times where I forgot I was playing a PC game, as it truly felt like an 8-bit cartridge. Well, other than maybe the higher widescreen resolution, but this game would have felt at home as a late release gem on the NES. Bright colors, simplistic but eye-pleasing effects, enemies and characters that don't have a ton of animation but enough detail to make them pop. It's all here, and the artists need to be commended. The same can be said about the soundtrack. I can't say that there's a bad song I've heard on the game. Sure, some tracks are definitely better than others, but overall, this is not a game that you're going to want to mute. Even the sound effects are period accurate. And yes, I'm aware that the soundtrack is probably more than what the toaster was capable of, but it probably wouldn't have taken a huge sacrifice for it to work. Probably. I don't know, I'm not a programmer. For a game that was apparently developed by just 3 guys, Fallen Leaf was an absolute joy to play. The gameplay is solid, the controls are responsive, the visuals are fantastic, and the soundtrack fits every stage perfectly. I think the only thing I have to say that's negative about the game is the limited use of the extra characters, but again, maybe you will like using them. I will admit that due to missing a few of the characters and running out of time, I didn't fully complete the game, as there was some post-end boss game content that I was unable to check out, but it took me 12 hours to beat the main portion of the game, and according to it, I was about 78% completed. I can live with that. If you are a fan of retro-style 2D platformers that have what appear to be a Ninja Turtle hiding in the background on some stages, you owe it to yourself to play Fallen Leaf. I can't wait to play it again from start to finish in a few years. Maybe in a stream? You'll have to see in the future. Final score? 6 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.